Gundam.tk presents Double O Riser. Hey again everybody, Robert184, 2Rs2Bs from Gundam.tk, and here I'm going to be looking at the completed perfect grade O Riser. You've already seen the high grade version, you've already seen the 1/100th non-grade. Is this significantly better? To get this transformed is not very difficult. As you'll see, you'll just reverse this, slide that up, which is pretty smooth. Make sure that this it doesn't lock into place or anything, but it should stay on there fairly well. Then all you have to do is take these side binders and plug them into this very tight-fitting poly cap. When you're plugging that in, make sure that this doesn't bend out of the way on you, so you may have to hold that in place as you slide that on, but otherwise, once you've done that, the completed perfect grade O Riser. And if you'll notice, hey, it's sitting at a strange angle. Well, that's for a couple of reasons. First of all, as I said before, the landing gear is not long enough in the front. So of course the front is going to lay down. But when you add on these binders, the side binders, of course they've got this piece at the bottom. And they are not able to support the weight of the O Riser if it's at an angle. So if they're at any sort of angle, the whole thing is just going to collapse inwards and fall down anyway. So you've got useless landing gear, and you don't have the ability to prop it up there, which means this thing is going to have to go on the action base. However, in terms of looks, I can't really complain too much. I mean, it's basically a bigger version of what we've already seen in the high grade and the 1/100th, with the difference that it's got some clear parts there. You can recess those parts there. The engine has a little bit more depth to it and a whole bunch of lining throughout. You can see that I've just got the wings angled at a not unreasonable angle, and if you put it down and actually release the weight, then it's just going to collapse more often than not. Here's the 1/100th with the same test, and it can stay up. And for the 1/44th high grade, you have no problem at all. Taking away a moment the question of whether this is needed as a perfect grade though, in terms of just plain looks, I actually really like the O Riser, and it has just enough color in it, and the orange on the cockpit looks great, and just the fact that it's got such cool weapons and the way that you can move the wings into whatever angle, usually, it really adds something to the whole Double O Gundam and takes me back to the Mark II and the Super Gundam in a very good way. So I'm not against the O Riser by itself in any way, shape, or form. For putting this onto the action base, you're not going to get the directions in the manual itself because this is not going to always come with the Double O Gundam. Anyway, usually you'll have this attached in here like this so that you've got double support for the Double O Gundam or the Double O Riser. But if you want, you can put just the Gundam up here by splitting this leg, and the same idea. By changing this, you'll be able to mount the O Riser. And though it's not as steady here, if you pop that part out there and reverse the direction, you can put it in this way to put the O Riser more in the middle of the base. Things like the O Riser, though, are completely designed to be on an action base, which is really why I'm surprised that this isn't going to be included all the time. But here you're able to actually use the side binders the way they were meant to. So here I've got the weapons popped out on the inside. You've got these bent, you can choose whichever angle you want, and then the same thing with those. Bend those out, you can pop out the engine if you want a little bit more of a cool effect. But outside of the fact that it's got a pretty weak lock mechanism, there's two small pegs, and they're only about 1 to 2 millimeters apiece that plug into the bottom. And the actual mechanism that it's on just rolls back and forth. So already this thing has sort of fallen down on me. But it's staying in place more often than not, but something, again, that could have been better. To put the weapons on, it's easiest just to take the side binders off, and here we're going to attach the two weapons on the inside, so they're not going to be all that visible. But over here we're going to have the GN missiles, 2 pairs here, and then of course the awesome looking hand missile units, which just go on the side and add a lot more bulk to this thing. The weapons for the most part fit on fairly well, and when you do that, you really get the impression of the increase in both the bulk and the armament. And though I wrote them off a little bit earlier as being just a whole bunch of unnecessarily just filler to fill up this box, I actually like the effect. I don't know how often I'm going to use it, but this does now look much more like a weapon of war than it does as just a clean, futuristic, sleek-looking white jet. To attach the GN Sword 3 for a whole bunch of pain for the head or whatever that's in its way, you are able to pop this up here and slide it like this. And when you do that, you take this custom attachment part, and you'll notice that there's a groove down there and then this peg up here. So you slide this down and in, and then you lock that into here for a fairly solid looking attachment, and this is going to go onto the bottom of the O-riser. On the bottom of the O-riser, you'll notice that there's a hole here and two down there, and that's going to correspond with this attachment. As mentioned though, this is all you're going to get to hold this on, and this is not a very strong attachment, and that does not fill me with confidence when you've got something this heavy sitting on top. Next, what you'll do is you'll take this giant attachment part here, and it is very well fitted around the GN Sword 3, and as you slide that down, there's two deep holes there and good pegs here, so that stays on, and again, it's just going to attach onto these little pegs up here. Very first time I try to put that on, and off it goes. You know, I usually never do this, but I remember way back when I threw out the directions for this action base thinking, I'll never need that. So I've tried reversing this again to sort of give this a little bit more stability. In terms of looks though, I'm pretty happy with it because the way the clear green and the clear orange offset each other combined with the whole bunch of gray weapons with that little bit of black trim that go on there. And then you're going to get this kind of, when you add the back of the GN Sword 3 on there, you just get the depth to this unit that all of a sudden it doesn't come across as being just sleek and thin. It's a lot more filled out and certainly does look like a weapon of war. But just to harp on this one more time, the reason it's leaning down is because that is in its natural position, like it feels safe there. But as it comes around, if I bring this down just a little bit, then you can just see that the whole weight just wants to collapse. That is not a strong enough attachment mechanism. If you do want to put the O-riser on the main attachment here, you are going to get this small attachment which plugs in there, and then you're going to be able to plug this into the O-riser. So where they could have just put in a big solid hole in the bottom of it and then used a proper attachment, instead you adapt this into something that is far inferior. And this is just getting ridiculous. So I'm going to wrap up this review of the O-riser with a verdict just on it, because at the end of the day, you're getting a huge box similar to most other perfect grades or large master grades. And if this was sold separately, how would I feel about this? Well, first, in terms of the build was interesting. It's not completely hollow on the inside, though don't expect an incredible inner frame like you have with the 00 Gundam. But building things like the weapons, it felt forced at the time. But overall, the looks and the appearance, I'm happy with. But these things, they've won me over when you actually attach them all, especially when you combine that with the GN Sword 3 down here at the bottom. This all of a sudden looks great. And I liked the high grade and I liked the 1/100th until I added everything onto here, and now all of a sudden I feel like this is a perfect grade. However, you have to ask the question, if this was on sale for 8,000 or 10,000 Japanese yen, would I go out and buy this? Well, the answer for me is probably because I'm a sucker. I would want the GN Sword 3. So Bandai was very clever, and I'm sure that was part of their initial marketing strategy when they were deciding whether to sell this combined or separate, that by putting this in the O-riser, they're going to increase their number of sales, because just this by itself, and these, well, it's debatable whether this is just filler or not. I don't know if this by itself would be worth the money. But once I put it all together, if it had a better action base, I'm actually pretty pleased with it. At the end of the day, however, this is not a separate perfect grade, it's a part of a set. So now, what you've all been waiting for, and me too, let's put the O-riser onto the 00 Gundam and combine this into the massive 00 riser. Anyway, why don't you let me know down below what you think of this kit so far, and as always, I look forward to hearing from you. In general, hit like if you do, hit don't if you don't, and as always, stay tuned for lots more reviews. Thanks for watching, everybody. Can you imagine Saji Crossroad at the end of Zeta Gundam flying this into the O?